Hello, this is Rachel with Epic Arts, and you are probably watching this video because you have purchased a gingerbread kit for the Epic at Home kits that we're doing this year. So, along with your kit, you should have received 2 slabs of our brown clay, and then also your little brown paper bag that has all of our little templates inside of it. You should have 4 pieces. And then there's a bunch of glazes in there that we'll use later. You have a fork to do our scratching and attaching, a paintbrush for glazing, and a popsicle stick that I maybe will be able to find. It's all the way at the bottom. So you'll get all of these tools in your kit and the slabs. And the very first step that we're going to do is try and get all of the texture out of these slabs. If you look really closely, there's kind of a canvasy texture. And if you want to keep that for your gingerbread house, that's okay. But if you don't, you can take a sponge or a damp paper towel and just kind of rub all of that texture out. You can put a little bit of pressure in there just to kind of get all of the little canvasy texture out of the slabs. You also should, before you start, you should get 2 bowls of water like I have here, and then some kind of something to cover the surface that you're working on. We have these nice tables here at Epic that have canvas on them, but you guys probably have newspaper or something papery, like brown paper, newspaper, just so that your clay doesn't stick to a surface, because that can get annoying sometimes. So I'm gonna smooth this one out, and then this one as well. And you can just get it so that it's a clean surface to work on, because the texture will pop up a little bit more than you expect it to. That was a little much. More than you expect it to when you glaze. So I'm just rubbing all of that texture out. Okay, so when they're as smooth as you want, the next thing that you'll have to do is a little bit of planning. So you have a couple pieces and they'll have a little ×2 on them. Those ones you have to cut out 2 times. So you really have to plan where you're going to put your different pieces so that you can make sure that you cut out all of the different pieces in your gingerbread house. So I'm going to kind of figure this out. This one just goes once and it's the biggest piece. So I think I'm going to fit in here. And then this one I'll have to do twice, so I have to remember. And if you want, you can actually trace around a little bit to give yourself a guide so that you know. I've already used this space, so I'll have to do it the second time. So I'm kind of tracing. Now I know that one. And then I have this guy, it's the floor. You just need 1 of those. So I'll put him here. So I know. And then this one, I'm gonna do 2 times. So I'll do 1 here and then 1 up here. So you should end up with enough that you'll actually have a lot of extra stuff. And that will be used for all of the different candies, if you want to put a chimney, anything that you want to attach. That's what we'll use all the excess for. Okay, so after you've planned for yourself, you're going to take your popsicle and you're going to start cutting out all of your different pieces. So this one's the roof. You're going to kind of use your popsicle stick up and down, and you try to cut like straight, don't angle it at all, otherwise it'll make an angled cut, which isn't what we want for this project. So I'm just kind of slowly and carefully cutting out all of my shapes. And then all the stuff that you end up getting, you can just put to the side because we'll use it later. Okay, so we'll cut this one out straight up and down. I think I kind of cut it with this one, yeah. And I'll take this template and I'll put them again. Actually, I think I'm going to use this part because one of my corners got a little bit cut off of the roundness. Just really using it straight up and down so I don't accidentally angle it, and so that I make sure that I get it exactly like my template. So there's those two pieces. There's my roof. Now I'm gonna scoot this one closer to me. Put all my clay scraps in one pile. Okay. So I'm gonna get my gingerbread floor cut out. And then here's the gingerbread house front, which I'll need 2 of. So I'll cut 1. And then I'll take this template and I'll put it up here. Don't know if you can see it. And I'll cut this one. Okay. Put my templates aside because all this stuff can be reused by us later, so there's lots and lots of gingerbread houses out there. And I'll start pulling these ones out. So here's my 2 fronts. Here's some more scraps. And then this piece, this square, is going to be the bottom. So I'm actually going to put it on my little surface that we gave you guys, because we're going to want to build on this surface so that it's easier to transport things later on, because when stuff gets dry, your clay is going to get really, really fragile, and you don't want to have to pick it up with your hands because you might break it, and that would be very sad. Okay, so now that I've cut out all my pieces, I can start to build. Now the first thing that we have to remember is that to do anything with clay, to form 2 pieces together, we always have to scratch to attach. So I know that all of my sides are gonna be covered with walls. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my fork and start scratching those edges. And you're gonna want them to be a little bit deep, not like digging into it, but just a little bit deep so that there's something for the clay to grab onto when you do all the ends. There is quite a bit of scratching to attaching in this project, so bear with me. Okay, so now that I have the bottom all scratched up, I'm just gonna start planning my build. And you can always clean up these edges a little bit as you get going. The bottom probably is fine because we know it's going to go straight down there. Okay, So you always, with this project, you'll have to remember to put these smaller walls on the inside layer, if that makes any sense. So these ones are gonna attach to them like this. So you have to make sure that you're putting it, you're not trying to attach it like this, because then you're gonna end up with the bottom kind of hanging out. We don't really want that. So these always go on the inside. Okay, so I'm gonna put my 2 house fronts on this one and the 2 inside walls on this one. So before I do anything, I have to scratch to attach. So I'm gonna scratch the bottom. Again, kind of deep. You kind of have to be careful because it's a floating piece here. Scratching the bottom, and then I know that the sides are gonna get attached too. So I'm gonna scratch the sides as well. Okay, and then to attach the piece, you're gonna take a little bit of water and get the bottom and the bottom here. You kind of have to balance it out. And you kind of, you stick it on there and you can kind of start smoothing where you've attached it. And the better that you can do at this, the more time that you take, the better. Oh, and I even did it wrong. You don't have to actually scratch the sides. You scratch this part, because that will be where this part attaches. But the better and more detailed you can be at this, the better that it'll turn out for you in the kiln. So take your time. I'm kind of speeding through for the video. Take your time with this part. It's probably the most important part of slab building. Okay, so here's where the tricky part comes in. Your slabs hopefully will be a little bit more stiff than mine. It's still workable, but if you can let them sit a couple days before you do the project, that'll help, because not like super long, but enough that it's a little bit stable. That'll help you. Okay, so I'm gonna hope that balances while I scratch to attach over here. So I'm gonna scratch the bottom and this side, and then I'm gonna scratch right over here because that's where that side's going to attach. It's hard to see, I know, but I'm scratching right where that piece is gonna attach. And then again, water down here and here and here and here. And you can attach this one, and you try to make sure that it's going all the way to the edge, smoothing it together. I'm gonna turn it a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing. And then smoothing my scratch to attach mistake that I made. Just getting it really attached together. You can use your finger. Sometimes people like to use the end of their tools. It's whatever you want to do. I feel like finger works better. Some people even use their fingernails if they want to make sure that it's really nice and smooth. Okay, so that's how you will do the walls. So you'll just have to repeat it 2 more times. And again, just remember, scratching to attaching is the best, most important thing. And sometimes your template can get a little bit off, especially I think I overshot when I traced it. And so if you notice that your edge over here is really close to the edge, you can take your little popsicle stick and kind of shave off enough so that this guy can fit there again. Sometimes it happens. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and attach this one again so then I can make it really stable before I get this bigger piece on again. Okay, so again, I'll do the bottom and this side right here. Scratch to attach. Take way more time than I'm doing. And sometimes the clay will get on here, so I like to take it off so that I have more of a sharper edge. Water again, your clay water. Water on the sides. And here it goes, attaching. I'm smoothing, making it nice and connected. The smoothing, you should try and make it look like the clay is just all one piece, like not even seeing a little tiny line of where it was previously unattached. You try to make it so it looks really flush and attached. And I like all of these edges to be really nice and smooth because the roof is gonna act like a lid, and so you're gonna see everything. So before you get all of the walls on, I like to make sure that it's nice and smooth in there, because if you end up putting little candies or cookies in here for Christmas, you want it to be smooth so that you don't have a sharp edge when people reach in. So I'm just kind of smoothing everywhere because it's easier to do when you don't have the fourth wall on. And sometimes you'll get little clay pieces that fall off, and so I like to get rid of those at this point too. And the nice part about this clay is we're going to give you brown clay, so when we fire it in our kilns, the clay will turn brown and it'll look like gingerbread. Okay, so it looks like this wall is a little bit too big as well, so I'm just going to trim off a tiny bit of the wall. This part you'll want to be really, you have to be really straight if you have to end up doing this, because it can get wonky pretty fast. Okay, so then this is the most scratching to attaching because I have to do the bottom, both of the sides, and then both of these parts. So I'm speeding through my scratching to attaching. Don't do that, use more time. You can pause the video if you want to. And then I'm gonna scratch here and here. And then these ends. 1 and 2. Again, water, water, and water. Same here, water, water, water. And I'm going to stick it together in one last round of smoothing, getting all of it to try and look like it's one piece of clay. You know, I think I did the same thing with this house end on this side. So if you find out that like one end is hanging out a little bit more, it's weird because it was the same template, but I just must have not done a super good job of tracing. You can just trim it off and it'll straighten it up and it'll look good. So I'm smoothing all of the walls together, trying to make it all super nice and flush. You can use your sponge or your paper towel to to make all of the textures that you might have put in there with your fingers or the fork or whatever, to make it just as smooth and finished looking as you want to. And then I'm gonna look in the inside, because I feel like the inside often gets neglected, but you have to remember people are going to see the inside of this one because the lid comes off. So really make sure that you're joining it both on the outside and on the inside. The inside's a little bit harder. You might have to kind of squish the clay down a little bit. Not super a lot, but just enough to get it to attach and look smooth. And then I'm using my fingernail to kind of smooth out where it's connected. Okay. So once you've spent way more time than I am on getting your gingerbread house to be just as perfect as you want it to be, the next part is doing the roof. So the roof is that big rectangle that we cut out, and I'm just smoothing out the edges of where I cut, because again, you'll be touching this. You don't want to accidentally create a sharpness hazard for yourself. So the roof is the big rectangle. And we are going to put it on our house. You kind of have to let it smoothly go on because clay doesn't super like to bend very well. So I'm gonna put it on like this. And then around the corner, I'm gonna put it down, and a little bit of it's gonna hang off the edge. And then I'm gonna kind of take my fingers and like make it a little bit pointy. And as you're doing this, you might notice that you're getting some little kind of flexing marks because you're bending the clay. Those are okay. But just try to work with them, like don't be too rough, don't do this part too violently, because you don't want your roof to break in half. That'd be sad. So I'm gonna take a little bit of water on those marks and just kind of smooth it out. And just tell your clay that it's okay. It'll be a beautiful gingerbread house soon. So it's okay that we're bending it. Okay, so after that, you'll see that you now have a plain gingerbread house. You've done all the building, you've followed the template, now you have a gingerbread house. Now it's up to you to be creative with how you want to design it. You can do something like this one. It has little candies all over it, it has some gumdrop action happening, maybe a little bit of frosting. You can use textures if you want to. You can always like use the end of your fork, or if you have something at home you'd like to use to draw into it, you can. But this part is really up to you as far as being creative. With this one, you can like use a gumdrop to be able to pick it up. You also might consider making yourself a little chimney. It's really up to you. So this is where you just get creative. You can take all these scraps of clay that you have lying around and start to make little things. So I'm gonna make some candy canes because I feel like those are always cute. I don't know where I'll put them yet, but I might roll out some coils a little bit. If you have cookie cutters, you could also maybe do some other shapes. You might have enough that you could make some little gingerbread houses or gingerbread people for your gingerbread house. It's really up to you how you want to get creative with it. Okay, so I have a little coil. Here's a little candy cane. Always use water to kind of smooth it out. You don't want to get it super, super wet, but it can kind of help with the texture aspect of it. And then anything that you put on your house, you must scratch to attach it. Otherwise it'll pop off in the kiln. And that would just be really sad. Okay, so I scratched. Now I'm gonna plan where I want it. I think I might put them on the roof a little bit and make a little design. Maybe a heart, that'd be cute. So I'll make another one. And then I kind of plan where I'm gonna scratch based on where it's sitting. So we'll know that I'm gonna put this one up here. So I'm scratching, water, water, there's one. And you have to kind of do the thing where you smooth it out. And if you accidentally overshot your scratches, you might want those to be smooth too. Okay, so there's one candy cane on there. I'm gonna use this to do another one. I'll probably have to make two more for this side. You don't have to make it match, but I kind of like it when it does. Smooth out any cracks that you end up with. And again, this is probably a time where you're gonna spend way, way, way more time on all the decorations than I am. So I'm trying to make this video sweet and short. We'll see. So I don't want to talk all your ears off, but you can always pause and take more time just so that you can get all of your creative ideas for this gingerbread house done just how you want them. Okay, so I've scratched to attach. So I'm going to put water, water, and attach. Okay, so I'm going to spend more time decorating the whole thing, and we'll probably have pictures of it somewhere on our website. But for the sake of time and for the sake of the video, this is the amount of decorating that I'm going to do before I start glazing, because I want to show you how it's important to glaze with our underglazes. So I can show you with this. So I'm not going to glaze any of the house bits because that is going to be used. When it's fired, it's going to be brown, like gingerbread. It'll get a little bit darker than this, and it's a nice color. It really looks like gingerbread. So if you're making candies, you'll probably want to add some color. So that's what all these little containers are for. And you can see they're marked, but you can also kind of can tell what color each one is. So what you'll do is you might have to mix them up a little bit, but to apply our underglazes, you have to kind of work really thick with it. And you can do it when it's still wet. There's no problem with that. So you kind of have to apply it thick, because if you don't, it can get kind of streaky sometimes. And you're not gonna want that. You're gonna want something nice and bright and vibrant. Sometimes I do 2 layers For the rest of them, I probably will do 2 layers, and I'll let it dry in between so that it's really, so I know that it's really, really covered. Because you want your candies to pop. Because after we clear glaze them later, after they've been fired, it kind of takes some of the pigment out. So you want to make sure that it's really covered. Okay, so here's some candy canes. You'll do it better than I will because you'll have more time. But after you put one color on, that's what this second bowl is for. You're gonna wash off your paintbrush, or if you have other paintbrushes at home, you could have one for each color. And then kind of dry it off so that it can pick up the glaze easier. And then you might take red or any color. There's plenty of different colors of candy canes out there. But I'm gonna use red for this one. And again, pretty thickly, I'm gonna try to apply some stripes. And because it's still wet, it's kind of blending a little bit, so I'm gonna take that white off before I dip it into my red again. And that's how you're gonna do your glazing. Remember, make it pretty thick or do multiple layers, at least 2 layers, if not more. And then you'll decorate the whole thing. You're not just gonna do 2 pieces of candy like me. And you'll glaze every piece with just as much care, which is way more than I'm showing right now, so that you can get it just right. On this one, I had way more time, and you can see the little details on there. And that was probably 3 coats for each color. So that's how detailed that you have to get. Okay, so then let's pretend for the video that I have decorated it all and it looks wonderful, it looks beautiful. So what you'll do after that is you'll take some plastic and you'll cover the whole thing with plastic, because the slower that it can dry, the better it's going to be, especially for this roof piece. So you might even take 2 plastic bags to like maybe cover this closer, and then tuck and cover the whole thing with a bigger plastic bag or something. But you're wanting to cover it pretty well so that it can glow, so that it can dry really nice and slow, just so that all of the pieces don't crack and do weird things. So that is our gingerbread house kit video. And remember, most important things, scratch to attach and take way longer to do it than Miss Rachel does it. Okay, hope you guys have lots of fun making this. It's a really fun little project. And thanks for watching.